Okay, what's up, guys? Finally live. Chuck and Chris here. It's Thursday evening. There's about 4 minutes left in the Eagles Patriots preseason game. We're here to draft some best ball, sweat the preseason game a little bit. Chris, how we doing?
Chuck, it's always a pleasure to join you here on the channel. Our brand new this month Occupy Best Ball Stream channel. I think we are still trying to pump the subscriber numbers here. So first and foremost, if you're joining us, whether on live or replay, we really appreciate it. If you could click subscribe. I know Brian's going to do a giveaway once we hit. I think we're trying to still get to like 100, 200 here on the new channel. Over on the regular DFS channel, once we get to 1,000, we're going to be doing a giveaway as well over on that channel. So just really appreciate everybody engaging with the content and looking forward to putting together another strong team here with you again tonight. Chuck, I have some of my exposures up on the screen here. So what I was hoping to do before we jump into a Ball Mania 5 is maybe just pick your brain on where I stand here. Not a super high volume drafter just yet here at Underdog this season, really only on the shows we've done together, to be completely honest with you, largely. And it looks like I'm very, very overweight on Lamar Jackson at quarterback. Not so much with the other elite quarterbacks. It looks like the next best one that I have is Jalen Hurts. As far as the elite guys go, top four guys that go. Anthony Richardson. I have 2 shares of Patrick Mahomes. I'm under the field with him. And surprisingly, under the field on Josh Allen, who I seem to always be way over on year in and year out, but not this year. How are you looking at quarterback? Does your distribution look similar to this or completely different?
Well, I have a lot more drafts, and so once you get more drafts, and it's going to come, they're going to flatten out. But in terms of like, a couple guys a little more than the others, and then pretty flat everywhere else, that's what mine looks like. I think that's what it should look like. Have a few leans on maybe a couple late round guys, and elite quarterback like Lamar. But for the most
Yeah.
part, I don't think we want to have too many stands at quarterback.
I think looking at 2x the field, which would be right around 16, 17%. I don't have very many players that are above that line. Obviously, here at running back, you can see my leans this season, pretty much the guys I've talked about on the shows we've all done together. Same at the wide receiver position. There's 6 to 8 guys here that I like a lot more than the field. I'm starting to feel pretty poorly about this Mike Williams exposure I have. I think I'm going to be leaving that alone. And then at tight end, drafted him on last night's stream. He's now my number 1 exposed tight end on Underdog here, Dalton Schultz with the Houston Texans. So I'm pretty reasonably happy here with this. If I had to talk through my approach for the next 3 weeks, I'm probably going to dive into this exposure data a little bit more off air and really dive in on the areas that I feel I'm underweight on to get a little bit closer to where I want to be before the season starts. So that's kind of how I feel about where things stand. A lot of contests still available here on Underdog, and I'm sure that they will debut some new ones. There is another $5 150 max that just dropped, the Puppy 3, with $100,000 available to first place. Well, I'm sure that'll fill basically before the end of the weekend, Chuck, the way that the users here on Underdog attack the puppy contests. We have a 5 entry max contest sponsored by Mr. Unlimited here, and then a 3 entry max fast draft contest with 10K to first for the Flock Community Contest. So a lot of really, really good options here. We are going to talk more about the marathon, I think, on some later streams, but we are going to go with the flagship Ball Mania 5, and I'm going to jump into a draft now. If anybody watching wants to jump in with me, just kidding. The location permissions that I always have on these streams happening once again here. That's what you get when you live like right on the border of another state, the one you actually live in. All right. 5 spots available to jump in here. It's only been just under 24 hours since you and I last talked, but is there anything new that you have been adjusting for today, Chuck?
I don't think so. No, I don't think anything's popped up. I'm on the clock in like 20 slow drafts right now. I'm just waiting for this game to end to see if, you never know. Someone could get hurt or maybe Shipley houses like a 90-yard touchdown, and I just want to click on him in every draft.
All right. This room filled pretty quickly. Yeah, so very brutal 3-3 Patriots Eagles preseason week 2 game is almost behind us. After watching this, Chuck, I feel like I really want the Patriots to just play Drake May right away. Jacoby Brissett did not impress me at all tonight. We're picking out of the 12 hole. We had the 11 hole last night, so we're right at the end here. I do not like drafting down here this year. Haven't really had a lot of pick variance that has plagued me down here, and I just feel far less confident in what I'm doing. Credit to you in our Discord. You actually did kind of a nice breakdown of the roster that I built where I reached a little bit for my elite quarterback and actually just kind of naturally landed on a contrarian build as a result of that. So maybe we'll try something similar again here tonight.
Yeah, what I pointed out yesterday, we talk about the combo stuff, and a lot of it isn't that relevant until we get to the finals week. But like low owned week 17 stacks, especially when it's Baltimore Houston, that's a pretty juicy game. And the Houston players are just not drafted with Lamar as often as you would think because Lamar's on the other side of the draft board. Basically, all the Houston players are on the right side of the draft board. And so, like Tank Dell, for example, was only on 1% of the Lamar teams. On in rooms that I've drafted in, which is like 200 plus now. So I think it's a pretty reasonable sample to know that it just if you want to get different, that's one way to easily get different. And I don't think you're sacrificing that much by taking Lamar at like pick 36.
Just looking at recent news, we haven't really gotten anything over the last 24 hours that should dramatically alter where we're at. We talked about JJ McCarthy a little bit yesterday. I think what I did see today was that it looks like the Vikings are already floating out there that they're comfortable moving forward with Sam Darnold as their number one quarterback. So I think at least for now, we can put some of those pursuit rumors of another quarterback to rest. Talked a little bit about potential for Derek Carr going there. I think that was a little bit of smoke and mirrors. I don't know how real that reporting was. So Sam Darnold, your number one quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, for better or for worse, and almost certainly for worse, if you ask me.
And what I will say about Sam Darnold, someone pointed this out on Twitter, maybe it was Herzig, but in contests like BBM, and I checked in my own stuff too, Sam Darnold was only drafted in 10% of the drafts that I've done so far, and he's probably going to be drafted in every draft going forward. But either way, if we're putting him in, I've seen a lot of guys say that we're putting him into around the Geno tier, maybe right after Geno Smith. The power in Sam Darnold is what if he doesn't suck and you're getting a lower owned quarterback that wasn't drafted on every team. Like, teams earlier had that ADP value. They're not going to have Sam Darnold. And so that's one way to kind of make that up. And so I think it's great to draft him in tournaments like BBM that have been open all summer.
So I think I am going to pump the tires on something that I talked about on yesterday's show again here, just as a result of quite literal recent events that took place on TV screens across the country. If you're still tuned in to this preseason game, and that was Drake May's fantasy upside being underrated because of his rushing and scrambling ability as he keeps it for the touchdown here, first touchdown of tonight's preseason game. Chuck, we got to probably up our exposure to Drake May. How much Drake May do you have right now?
I have an okay amount because I've been clicking him and Bo Nix at the end of drafts now. Let's see. Drake May, 7% on Underdog.
Okay, so little under the field. Man, you know what? I'm not going to overthink this. I'm going to make Jets 13 happy. I'm just going to go Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison back to back.
Yeah, just keep it simple.
Yep. Plenty of juicy correlations with each of the Jets and the Cardinals. We've got Buffalo and New York in Buffalo, week 17. Probably more attractive weather environment, definitely more attractive weather environment with Arizona at LA, though, in week 17. Those are the two kind of finals week stacks that I'm now officially looking for.
Puka Nacua going number 4. Let's see what this is.
I think I'm still stuck on 0% Puka, which is definitely wrong. I want to be in line with the field, but taking him over Chase, Brown, Jefferson, I definitely think that's incorrect. I don't like that.
Personally. Oh, yeah. We're not doing that. Puka. I still feel like I have to click on him if I have like if Garrett Wilson was off the board here like he usually would be at the 12 spot. Still taking Puka. Still think he has the highest ceiling out of everyone.
So on teams that have, maybe you can pull this up for me, I'll put you on the spot. Teams that have Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison, that's a relatively chalky start out of the 12 hole. How often are people landing on right on ADP is going to be like Zay Flowers, Michael Pittman, Amari Cooper, T. Higgins. So if we reach just a little bit for like a Terry McLaurin at receiver, James Cook or Josh Jacobs even. Josh Jacobs a little too aggressive at running back, but I guess just humor me here. Where are we looking at for combos? Who's some lower owned players with those guys in your opinion right now?
Well, the first thing I'm thinking is like playoff correlations, and Josh Allen is probably a higher owned player with Garrett Wilson, given where they go in ADP. Let's pull it up here though. And then Marvin Harrison with the Rams. There's not anyone that lines up there, so it's a pretty great
Yeah,
opportunity to add our new favorite late round pick at the end of the draft, though.
if he makes it to me, he got picked in the 16th round yesterday, I believe. If I know who you're talking about.
Let's see. Garrett Wilson is paired with Marvin Harrison 18% of the time.
Okay.
Some low-owned players. Josh Allen is with him 21% of the time. Lamar Jackson 3%. So that's already something.
See, I'm way over the field on him, but like we talked about it yesterday when I did it. Double tapping Flowers and Lamar might still be sitting there again for me, depending on how the rest of this third round goes.
Yeah, and Zay Flowers 17% with Garrett Wilson, so
Okay,
it's like
that's
one of the
right
higher.
on his ADP though.
Yeah,
but with Lamar, not so much. Definitely get that. Kind of surprised to see Devontae slide to the third round here tonight. I have not really seen that happen too much in my time, anyway.
Over in so that Pomeranian but Superflex that dropped last week, they were set the ADPs, and I feel like they uploaded the wrong CSV. And Devontae's ADP even today is 52, which over in the Superflex I have him on like every team there because it's wrong.
That seems bad. But you know what? Good on you for taking advantage of that, for sure.
Oh, yeah. John's gone. So, like, DJ Moore is 1% owned if he ends up falling. With Garrett Wilson, I should say.
Again, I don't expect this to fall to me. DK still being on the board, too, is a little surprising.
Yeah, DK 4%.
But this guy doesn't have a receiver yet. He's definitely going to grab one, or he should.
You would think that.
Okay. So DJ Moore comes off. What about Anthony Richardson with these two guys?
16%.
That's
it looks
higher
like
than
he
I thought it was
comes.
going to be.
Yeah, it looks like he comes back around in the next round fairly often.
Laporta and Kelsey.
They're both around 15%.
How about Mahomes?
6%.
All right, so you're telling me that I can go Kelsey, Mahomes, and nobody with this start has that, for relatively speaking. That's fine. I'll do that. We just collaborated on a team that's going to win $1.5 million live on the air. Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it.
Can you, or would you consider double tapping with Xavier Worthy?
Yeah. If he makes it to pick 60, which is pretty close to his ADP, right? 61.2. Absolutely. I think I did a couple of shows with you on the other side of the board where I did the same thing with like not Kelsey, but with like Pacheco, Mahomes, and Worthy a couple weeks back. So obviously, I like it a little later on the board, and I'm doing it a little earlier here. I'd be thrilled to get Worthy now. For sure, with the same combo.
Yeah, Mahomes is one of the quarterbacks drafted early that I do want to double stack if I can. Especially Marquise Brown is falling so late now. People are acting as if he's out for half the season.
And then this just naturally pushes me to consider Week 17 for the Chiefs. They've got the Steelers. Week 16, they've got Houston. So we may be in Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon territory again. And then we've got the Cleveland Browns in the first week of the playoffs. I just think we're naturally going to be different than our opponents drafting out of similar spots in other pods that are probably just going to straight up be correlating with Wilson or Harrison if we focus on like our third, fourth, fifth round assets. I don't think, based off of the ownership data you have shared on these shows for weeks now, this seems to be a way to build that the field is not necessarily building. So that's why I'm really like laser focused on that.
And one thing that like it concerns me a little bit, missing out on ADP value on certain guys just if you're drafting in the first weeks BBM was open, you got combos that are just not possible to get now. And this is one of the ways that can kind of make up for what we're missing out with those impossible combos now. And then also having hopefully 18 active players rather than losing a player to like JJ McCarthy or whoever else is lost for the season.
She Rice, like firmly a fourth round pick. I never saw this coming after the super negative environment we were in April, May, June there with him. So, but like you said yesterday, you're very very happy to add him here. You think we're in the clear on any discipline with him, or you think it's just a lack of competition around him for targets that's pushing him back up?
Kind of both. Because at this point, even if he's suspended for 4 weeks, I think that he's adding enough in the weeks he's there. Like his ADP is definitely coming up, but this is probably close to about where he should be, I think. And I'm taking him like what you did with Kelsey and Mahomes. I've done with this with Mahomes and Rashi Rice in that spot too. The
Mm-hmm.
hard thing about that is people were getting Rashi Rice in the 5th round rather than the 3rd round, but I don't think it's that big of a deal.
I don't think I have a tremendous amount. Well, we just looked at the exposures briefly before we started. Kelsey's not near the top of my exposures, and Mahomes I was underweight on. So,
Mm-hmm.
this will definitely help me get a little bit more caught up with the field as well. So, more than happy to do that. 2 shows in a row, bringing Marvin Harrison to the people. Talk to me, even though he didn't land on our team based off where the draft slot was tonight, about Devin Achane, because it seems like that has been the popular topic of discussion around the industry over the last couple of days. What are your thoughts on Miami's RB2?
So if we're talking like regular redraft, he would not be going this high at all. But because of the best ball format, just the ability for him to go off in 1 week. I mean, if he's on your team in week 17, and let's say he didn't have a good week 15 and week 16, so he's low owned, like you're absolute. That's probably one of the top players that you're happy to have in the final week. Game environment notwithstanding, but I don't know because the debate is his touches per game are probably going to be lower than we'd hope, but his efficiency is probably the best of all time, right? For a season that he had last year, is he going to repeat it? I don't know. And not to mention, there's now apparently 4 running backs in the room in Miami, so I think he's going too early. I will say on weekly winners, he's my highest drafted running back, which I love. Because, like I just said, the single game upside is huge. But I don't know if there's big debates on Twitter. What side are you on?
Well, first, let me make a pick here. I am going to go with Keenan Allen
Love it.
and Xavier Worthing. We'll double tap with Mahomes there with these two guys. So, give me that question again. To be completely honest, I was thinking about what I was doing here. Still no running backs for me here, but I'm not panicking about that. I'm happy with how we're building.
Just which side of like the Devin A chain stuff are you on? Do you think he's a good pick, or do you think he's way overpriced?
I'm willing to argue it can be both, right? I think he is overpriced. I think Mostert is still going to have the volume there, and at his price, he's a screaming value. I'd be
Mm-hmm.
happy to get him on my next turn here if he's still there. But we know what a Chan, excuse me, we know what his ceiling is based on what we saw last year. He's not going to average 8 yards a carry again. We know that too. But if people are scared to click on him, people feel like it's a bad value, if we get him in the playoff weeks, we sneak teams with him through. We know what he's capable of. I think I'm just reiterating what you were just saying, to be completely honest with
Mm-hmm.
you. So even though you can make the intellectual argument that he's a bad pick at ADP, to a certain degree, it doesn't matter. We still have to play the game here. And if he's the piece you need in the second round to win this year, then you're certainly going to be pretty upset if you have zero of him in your portfolio. So I do think I'm not like crazy about clicking on him over and over again. He's not going to be one of my highest exposed players, but he's not like a do not draft player for me. I think things are much more gray in the best ball streets, especially if you're multi-entering. It's not a very black and white thing.
So Kyron is going as of right now. It looks like 7 picks after Devin A chain, and I feel a
Mhm.
lot more comfortable clicking on Kyron and then taking like Jalen Wright or Mostert later in the draft if I want to get that exposure, which I do have exposure to Miami's backfield and definitely more than half of my drafts.
I do think of all the highly drafted running backs, like in the first 2 rounds, that even though he's in the third round now, Kyron's probably my highest owned in that group. So you and
Mm-hmm.
I are probably pretty close there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I am looking potentially once again, as we were last night, right on ADP for one of these Pittsburgh running backs with my next pick coming up in the 7th round, which I certainly would be interested in because of the Chiefs stack that I now have. So kind of just going for that. Not necessarily worried about ownership anymore at this point because I think I'm already pretty differentiated enough with the way that I went in the first 4 rounds.
Yeah, especially if you just grab at least one piece from that Pittsburgh team. But so if let's say you miss out on these running backs, who would you add to this team to get that correlation? Because I don't think Fryermuth is a good pick because you have Kelsey already. But I mean, is there another wide receiver? I think we learned Van Jefferson's a wide receiver too.
Yeah, I mean, it's really gross down here, man. Still holding out hope with rookie Roman Wilson. I think he's been a little banged up, so we haven't seen much in the preseason. Calvin Austin is probably like another name I would click on in the 17th, 18th round, but that is about it. I don't think there's anyone else on Pittsburgh that I'm willing to click on.
Yeah,
I
that's
would probably
fair
just
enough.
forego the correlation if I can't get one of the running backs or one of those receivers in the last round. Like I just think it would be a complete waste of a pick at that point.
Yeah, I was adding on Calvin Austin for a bit, but if he can't definitively beat out Van Jefferson, then I probably don't want to click him anymore. But I'm still fine taking Roman Wilson. He's sliding in a lot of drafts, and as far as I know, he's healthy, so mostly
And
healthy.
we'll go with the unknown commodity in the draft capital, right? I mean, that's really we don't know what can happen there, so we could surprise us in a good way. So we want to buy into the uncertainty. I'm always happy to click on rookies pretty aggressively. One of which downloaded into my brain by God. Brian wanted me to say that tonight. Brian Thomas in the 6th round to Stubby here, picking out of the 2 hole. Happy for everyone that gets their piece of Brian Thomas this year. I think he's going to be a pretty fun piece to have in fantasy this year.
Yep, I did see positive things about him today. No one can guard him, and it doesn't seem like his ADP is moving up too quick. I expect it will over the rest of August, so get your shares now. And
Would consider him to be the best rookie not named Marvin Harrison that you can select in the draft. That's
over
probably, I mean,
Neighbors?
yes. Yeah, I feel
Okay.
much better about Brian Thomas than Malik Neighbors. Absolutely. I just think the whole situation is much better. Trevor Lawrence versus Daniel Jones, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, 50 point or 50 pick discount. We'll take it.
And if you are into preseason, I do believe Brian is breaking down second half contests in the Occupy Fantasy Discord right now. So if that's your thing, please head on over there and take a gander at that while you're watching the show here. Lord knows I've been listening to the notifications blow up in the background while we've been doing this. Jalen Warren came off, so that's fine. I will just lock in my Week 17 correlation. And Najee Harris is one of those running backs, Chuck, that I'm more than okay with being the first running back that I select.
Yep.
Another running back that we saw start tonight for the worst football team in the league, Ramondre Stevenson. I don't mind selecting him, but I did mention Brother Raheem, and I'm going to go with that just because we like players on good teams, and we do think Miami's going to be better than New England this year, as does pretty much everybody.
And I just realized Jets 13 in the chat. GW, because we drafted Garrett Wilson. Nice. I'm glad you're here for that.
I mean, and Rodgers is definitely on my radar as my second quarterback. You know, I think when you take Patrick Mahomes, you're not looking to go 3 quarterbacks, that's for sure. And you're not looking to take another guy like super early. So even though Rodgers is like a 13th, 14th round pick, definitely think it makes sense to pair him with Garrett Wilson. It's probably the most popular player people are pairing Aaron Rodgers with. But you have no bye week conflict there. The Chiefs have their bye week in week 6, Jets in week 12. So I've definitely left that on the table for me here. As you know, the Kyler Murray option's long gone. He's been gone for about 3 rounds now. And so with Marvin Harrison, we're not going to be pairing him off.
Yeah, I think with Garrett Wilson and maybe like who was the other guy in the first round? Drake London. I feel like we really want to draft their quarterbacks when we have them because the whole thing depends on their quarterback being good.
So in the reverse of that, you're not a huge fan of Rodgers or Kirk Cousins if you don't have their early receiver. What do you
Never.
think?
No, I've taken Kirk Cousins a couple times past ADP, but now there's not even anyone that goes after him to pair him with. Darnell Mooney's moving up in ADP. Rondell Moore's lost for the season. I think I saw I don't know. We can get to the Commanders wide receiver 2 situation in a second, but there's just no stack partners except for Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. So
Gets ugly quick, some of those offenses, that's for sure. All right. I did reach a little bit to grab Raheem there, but again, completely fine with how this team has started. If I have issues at pass catcher, then drafting another one here in round 7, 8 isn't going to save this team the way this team's already been started. So I'm fine with loading up at some of these high upside running backs. Raheem Mostert led the league in touchdowns last year, right, at the running back position. Even though we are all extremely excited about Achane's efficiency, if everyone still expects Mostert to lead that group in raw touches, again, I want to see some of these starters play in the preseason for Miami. I want to see which running backs are in that proverbial green zone inside the 5-yard line, Chuck. If that's still Raheem Mostert territory, then wheels up, man.
yeah, it's hard not to click on him in this range now. All these guys getting jumped up. We talked about it yesterday.
And Rye Blake here will be competing against the same 50% of users that have CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott together.
CeeDee Lamb. Dude, I've seen, like, we talked about it yesterday too, but I've seen the most different top 5 picks ever. Like, Tyreek went 5th yesterday. CD went 6th or 7th in a draft. CMC is going 4th. Just nothing makes sense anymore. I love it.
Yeah, people jumping in that are still thinking about last year's first round, right? That's got to be the explanation for how that's happening.
And no one wants Justin Jefferson. I'll take Justin Jefferson. I did just mention, so with the Commanders backfield, I think we've talked about, I really like Terry McLaurin right now. And Dotson is competing with Zacchaeus, or maybe Zacchaeus is even winning.
Yeah.
Olamide Zacchaeus is winning the wide receiver 2 spot, which means it's also bad for Luke McCaffrey. And so their receiving options are just awful. Zach Ertz might be a little bit more in play than he was before. I've been taking him if I kind of want a ceiling play at tight end.
I just think it's Ben Sinnott territory, man. I think he looked a lot better than people expected in the preseason. I've been high on him all summer, so he's my favorite kind of tertiary, I guess, weapon to take from the Commanders. But yeah, wheels up, I think, for fans of Olamide Zacchaeus, aka the tax collector. For those of you very familiar with your Bible stories, I do think Zacchaeus has a really good chance to be the secondary wide receiver there. All right, what are we gonna do here? Houston and Cleveland correlation still out there lingering for me with the Kansas City Chiefs. Man, am I going to take Javonte? No, I have not taken any of him. I have so much Jacoby Myers, and I'm really, really tempted to grab him here. Devin Singletary, going to be one of the picks I make here at running back because I want to add to my exposure there. I feel pretty good about Tony Pollard. I have no reason to consider Javonte here, and I guess it wouldn't be an Occupy show if we didn't advocate for Rashid Shaheed, so I'll go ahead and take him here as well.
Yeah, this is the spot in the draft where I think I have the most trouble because I like basically everyone here. I'm even clicking on Javonte recently.
I know, because we just looked at the exposures, that in this range, 2 of my highest owned plays are Lockett and Jacoby Myers. So they are the receivers that I like the most here. So I just kind of naturally have to force myself to get different. I don't have a correlated reason to really want either of those guys here. Neither did I for Shaheed, to be completely honest with you. But I don't have as much Shaheed, so that's pretty much how I broke the tie.
Yep. Goddard, Purdy.
So we're sitting on a 1-3-5-1 with 8 rounds to go, which is right where I like to be. 5 receivers through 8 rounds is more than a comfortable place to be. So we're looking pretty good at this point, I think. Bottom of the draft is where I think we will most aggressively start to see things move here, especially after this upcoming Saturday, where we're going to get a ton of new information with basically every team in the NFL wrapping up their second week of the preseason on Saturday afternoon or evening. So, with that in mind, and we went through some of the storylines from preseason week 1 on yesterday's stream, is there anything out there that is still kind of ambiguous that you're hoping we get some answers on this weekend, Chuck?
Well, I just pulled up the Occupy ADP tracker on occupyfantasy.com, and Jordan Mason's up 18 spots in ADP in the past 7 days, up to 196. It's still around 17, but I've clicked on him a couple times. I've stopped clicking on Elijah Mitchell, but that's something that we probably want some clarification on if we're going to click on either of them.
You're talking, of course, about the reports from all the San Francisco beat writers that it's a real competition behind Christian McCaffrey, and obviously the ADP data reflects that. I've got it up on the screen here now as well. We've got Jalen Tolbert up a round and a half as well, wide receiver 3 potentially for the Dallas Cowboys. Braylon Allen with the Jets, one of my favorite late running backs. We're lighting the Dortch torch. We've been doing that here at Occupy, but the field is now doing it as well. Michael Wilson also with the Cardinals, and then Andre Josevich with the Bengals. This actually was a player I did want to talk about a little bit more that I don't think we've talked about enough. He certainly deserves his flowers, Chuck. It does seem like Josevich has kind of, quote unquote, won the early competition here to be the third receiver for the Bengals, even over highly anticipated rookie Jermaine Burton. It looks like Josevich's ability to play in the slot is going to be the tiebreaker there, at least to begin the season. So how are you treating Jermaine Burton's relatively high ADP versus Josevich's slightly lower ADP?
Yeah. So Jermaine Burton, when I go to try to draft him, he's usually off the board because he's going earlier than I expect. And Josevich, I've been adding him at the end of drafts. Everyone on this ADP list I've been drafting recently is a target of mine. So the field looks pretty sharp, or maybe I'm just going with the chalk. But yeah, I guess I haven't been getting much Burton, but Josevich seems fine. I mean, T. Higgins or Jamar Chase missed games. That's where all the value is.
I'm just thinking, and again, every year is different. I understand that. But one of my highest exposed player last year was Boyd, who was Joe Burrow's slot receiver, or we thought was going to be Burrow's slot receiver before Burrow had some injury issues. If that role is available at pick 200, I probably need to start drafting it more. So I think I'm going to be mixing in a lot more Josevich than I had been already. I think I've clicked on him a couple of times, more so on the other site where you have the extra couple of rounds to play with. But I think I want to add him here on Underdog as well.
I like that. Yeah, lean into the uncertainty. People haven't seen him go off, so.
But, you take the names out of it, and if I tell you that the not lock, but if Joe Burrow's slot receiver is still available at the end of drafts, then, I think that's probably the best way to think of it. Adonai Mitchell, we have any positive thoughts there on him coming out of preseason week 1? Thought he looked pretty good for the Colts, especially with some uncertainty with Josh Downs' early availability, right? And I am going to lean into my highest exposed tight end here again, Chuck. I still think Schultz's cost is pretty affordable here in the 12th round. Not relying on him, right, with Kelsey, but I do have that correlation with the Texans in the playoff weeks. And it would be probably a fairly interesting playoff week if I'm getting, one of these guys is my tight end and the other in the flex if that game goes off scoring wise. So I'm okay with doing that here.
No, I like it. Schultz is basically, to me, the last guy that can hit a ceiling. Maybe Hawkinson, but.
And now we're done with tight ends. So I don't think I've really clicked on Adonai Mitchell before today. So just kind of trying to talk myself into it as well. Seems like a rookie that's going to play a lot, so I want to have some shares.
Yeah, I was going to say I haven't really been clicking on him too much either. I had a ton of Josh Downs. Probably never going to click on him again, but I'm worried about Alec Pierce. I guess the three of them can be on the field: Pierce, Mitchell, and Pittman.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to characterize it. All three of them are going to play. The question is going to be what happens if and when Downs is back. Yeah. That is the biggest question mark still on the board. So where are we sitting now? 3 running backs still, 6 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. Probably looking for 1 to 2 more wide receivers. Aaron Rodgers at quarterback is probably what I want to do with the next round here. So that means Jets 13 is happy to see me begrudgingly admit that. And then just filling out some running back lottery tickets. The typical way we draft teams on this show to round it out. Chuck, as we get to the end of the kind of quarterbacks available on the draft board, again, I understand it's been 24 months since we've seen him play, but Aaron Rodgers is like one of the only guys I can see having a 20 points per game average out of the remaining quarterbacks in that tier if he can be anything close to what we know he's capable of. So definitely think that's worth taking some shots on here in round 14, 15.
Yeah, of the quarterbacks that we're confident are starting.
Right. That's, I think, the key relative to his cost, relative to his peers at the
Mm-hmm.
position around him. I'm not taking him straight up over the guys at the top of the position, but that's never the choice that we have, right? So we can't look at it that way. I have not, I think Pearsall is a player that I straight up have 0% of, and it's probably going to stay that way just because of the injury situation there.
This section of the draft, it's like I don't have any round 13 guys that I'm picking right now. I'm scrolling down, reaching by like 20 picks usually in this range because I'm just so out on basically everyone here except for the quarterbacks, I guess.
It's gross, man. Which is why I think it's important to kind of already have a fairly deep stable of receivers on your roster by the time you get down here because it just gets ugly so quick at the end of the draft just because of how early they're all going. So there are guys that are still I think viable down here. Wan'Dale Robinson, I think I had him on the screen
Yep.
as one of my highest exposed players with the New York Giants. Probably my favorite of the bunch. I do like Rashad Bateman. Maybe this is finally the year here for him in Baltimore. But beyond that, the Dorch Torch, Andre Josevac, who we just talked about, there's just not a ton of guys I'm excited about at receiver.
Oh, dude, I'm reaching for Dortch at this point if I really need a receiver.
I guess the one positive thing that I could say about the opening drive for the New England Patriots starters tonight in this game. Pop Douglas returned to practice like 2 or 3 days ago. He's already basically virtually at the top of receiving reps in practice. And then when Brissett lined up to throw, they immediately forced like a wide receiver screen to Douglas. So clearly New England wants to get Douglas involved. He's already, I think, like my highest drafted wide receiver in this round 13, 14 range. But I guess for anyone out there that's looking for a player, I think Demario Douglas is one of those guys that's also pretty safe here.
And if you're drafting on the other sites, I've gotten Demario Douglas at like pick 200 multiple times in the past couple of weeks. People are forgetting about him because of like camp hype on maybe Baker or Polk, but Douglas is great. And we pointed out he scored 0 touchdowns last year. Like, what if he scores a touchdown this year?
A touchdown or 8, right? That's what we would. That's what we would take. Definitely, he's got to regress if he's going to be involved. It's like literally a repeat of the Jacoby Myers experience in New England for sure. Okay, so back to us. I have a little bit of man. You know what? Like sometimes it just falls to you, and like just do what you think is the right thing to do here. I'm gonna skip over Leggett. I'm gonna go with Douglas because I basically made the case for how I like him. And yeah, I'm gonna go with Aaron Rodgers. And now we're done at quarterback.
Leggett, did anything happen with him in the game, good or bad?
I mean, I don't have any memorable recollection of anything he did. That could be on me, to be completely honest with you. Maybe I just did not closely track the Panthers as much as I should have last week. But let's see here. Got all my stuff filtered for the preseason game that took place tonight. But let's go to the Carolina Panthers. So I don't think he played in week 1.
Okay.
But I don't, yeah, because he's not in my data set here for guys for Carolina from week 1. We had Emir Smith-Marset leading them in routes run in that first preseason game. David Moore, Jalen Coker, Terrace Marshall Jr. So yeah, we have not really seen much from Xavier Leggett to this point in the preseason or in training camp.
Okay, because you mentioned like we don't love much in this range, but I don't know. Leggett going 7 picks ahead of Thielen, I still don't mind clicking Thielen.
Yeah, I mean the only thing with Leggett is I guess the same argument I was making earlier for just rookies in general. We have the upside, the uncertainty there. What if he's like really good? Like we just don't know yet. So like I will still click on him for that reason, but maybe it is a little bit of a homerism here. Admittedly, I just think Douglas is like quote unquote the safest pick in this range at receiver. So if you are looking, and granted, maybe that's not the right thing for the team that I have going here because I already have some pretty good receivers on this roster. But if you need a little bit more floor out of your receivers in this range, he's probably the best guy to click on.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about in PP, like the other sites where he's going later, PPR sites, and he seems much better in PPR if he's not going to score touchdowns.
All right. Noah Fant comes off the board. I have not been tracking tight ends at all because I no longer need them.
Hunter Henry left with
Yeah.
with the injury.
Yeah, he hasn't been really playing in these preseason games. I'm not really concerned about that. That probably is a good sign for his role with the Patriots this year. They just want to get him healthy for week one. They've been trotting out Austin Hooper and Mitchell Wilcox, who are both newcomers to New England in these preseason games. And I think Wilcox is the one that's actually competing for a roster spot. All reports out of New England seem to suggest that Hooper is kind of locked into the backup role, similar to what Mike Gesicki had last year behind Hunter Henry. So I guess if you're looking for like a round 18 dart at tight end, maybe Austin Hooper starts to enter the conversation.
Man, Hooper. I'll never forget Austin Hooper. First year playing best ball, I was like 2.5 points away from advancing. Travis Kelce had COVID, and Austin Hooper was my only tight end. He only had to score like 3 points, man. He didn't.
Yeah. I was about to say, I'm guessing he did. So you're never clicking on that name again.
No, I think I went nuts on him the following year. He was one of my highest exposed tight ends.
We're midway through the third quarter here. It looks like we still got a 10-3 football game here between the Patriots and the Eagles here in preseason week 2. Really appreciate any of you guys they're hanging out with us here for this draft or may have engaged with our content for preseason week 2 on the site. We got a day off tomorrow. There is no football on Friday, but we'll be back with a huge slate of games on Saturday, almost like a preview of an NFL Sunday coming up this Saturday, Chuck. There's like 13 games overall in the whole day. Probably, I don't know if the action is posted yet for the daily fantasy sites, but obviously here on Underdog, there will be a healthy offering of stats that you can choose from to put some pick'em and champion slips entries together for. And I guess for those of you that are not, for whatever reason, playing on Underdog yet, but are watching our shows, first of all, we appreciate you. Second of all, we have a promo code on the screen here, Occupy2. You can sign up for Underdog Fantasy today and make your first deposit. Get matched 50% of your deposit instantly. I believe the match max is at $500. If the deposit match is $250 max, that means 50% match $500. We'll give you an additional $250 to start playing. If you want $150 max, the new $5 Puppy 3 that just dropped, that would be all you would need to do. It's just deposit $500 today, and that $250 would give you enough to max that contest out for you. People that are itching to get into the best ball streets, there's no better time than now. I will say I have been kind of on the outside looking in, Chuck, on the Jalen McMillan hype train. Tell me why that's a mistake, and I should be bringing him onto my rosters more.
Cheap rookie. We learned yesterday Tampa Bay probably has a stronger O-line due to their rookie center. I don't know who he has. Who does he have to beat out for the 3? Trey Palmer?
Trey Palmer? Yeah. Admittedly, I'm not really clicking on him either. So
No. But I mean, the same argument we just made about all the rookies. Just what if he's really good?
Yeah. I'm looking to get some names of guys to click on more than what's available still in this range. Usually the way I draft, I'm kind of done at receiver by these last 4 rounds, and I'm only looking at like one more guy typically. So I guess I'm just naturally off the position at this point. But yeah, man, I definitely need to start mixing in some more guys because I'll go back to my exposures after we're done here. Like Antonio Gibson, I'm skipping right over Khalil Herbert. I'm skipping right over Kamani Vidal. Audric Estime, like these are like my auto clicks here, and I'm going to end up with like a ton of these guys by the time the season starts.
Yeah, and it's funny you say you're not really taking receivers in the last round. I find myself taking a receiver in the last round in almost every draft now because the tight ends, I'm not confident in the ones that are left. And then running backs, like after Estime and Justice Hill are off the board, like I'm clicking on the other guys you just said too, but once those guys are off the board, there's no one confident that I can click on. Like I don't want to go back to A.J. Dillon or Kenneth Gainwell. It's still a little scary to click Shipley, so usually try to be done with running back right around here where you are.
Yeah, there's like just some scary like names here, man. There's really not there's upside, but I guess I saw another popular analyst today put out Miles Sanders as a name for a late round running back that he's interested in. I mean, it's purely got to be just based on cost, right? Like he virtually has no ADP. We've seen him handle the volume before. Really, really good contingent value there if anything happens to Jonathan Brooks. But like other than him, man, I don't know what's available. That isn't just like kind of boring, unexcited fantasy points here, and no. Like a guy like Justice Hill, right? He's available in the 17th, 18th round, but I just don't see much of a ceiling case for a player like that.
I agree.
That's
Yeah.
that's like where we're at with running backs once we get to this point.
Yeah. Justice Hill is more of a like, this is a guy I believe can give me 10 points if I'm screwed that week at running back, and I think I need points. But with the
I'd be,
Miles,
I'd be
go ahead.
thrilled with 10 points from Justice Hill in a week. He's
I
like
believe.
I feel like he's like a 5 to 7 point ceiling type of guy. He's going to play every week, right? But he's just not going to have a ton of touches.
Miles Sanders is the 12th highest paid running back in the NFL.
Okay. Feel like he's on the fast track to being not paid by the NFL, but
So
that's neither here nor there.
Jamal Williams is 19th. Samaj
Okay, so
Perine,
that's a running back.
21.
He's available for free here at the end of drafts.
Mm-hmm.
Anything happens to Alvin Kamara, I mean, we just didn't really see it last year. We talked about Shipley versus Gainwell. I guess this next group is not a group that we've talked about much on our shows, but I think some other fantasy analysts have talked about. A couple of rookies. Sione Vaki with the Detroit Lions, and then we have Rasheen Ali with those same Baltimore Ravens that Justice Hill plays for. You have any of those guys here on Underdog?
No, but I'd be interested to find out if whoever we believe to be the Lions RB3 is draftable.
Craig Reynolds? If it's still him, I think he's still on the roster there.
Is he
Um,
draftable?
I don't think so, but like, yeah, man. I mean, if anything happens to one of those two guys ahead of him, maybe I think he profiles slightly better to take over for Montgomery if anything happens there.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
I think Gibbs is a special enough talent with his athleticism that they kind of have carved out a special 1A 1B role there. But if anything happens to Gibbs, I just think that whoever's remaining turns into more of a bell cow. We'd have to probably go look at the splits from last year to see if my lean there is correct. But I do think that's kind of how that shakes out. Craig Reynolds being the third guy, like I don't think if Gibbs gets injured, he just automatically becomes Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery stays David Montgomery. But if David Montgomery gets hurt, then Reynolds probably has a path to backing up Gibbs. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Kind of ranting on the Lions running back 3 situation here to round out the show. Definitely an exciting time to be alive.
I mean, it's a spot that's not really explored. I haven't seen anyone else talk about it, so. But Craig Reynolds, not
Yeah,
exciting.
very in-demand asset in fantasy football. Probably would tear up the UFL if he was over there, that's for sure. Yeah, we got Craig Reynolds. We have Sione Vaki, who's down here as an option. But Jamar Jefferson, preseason star, I guess if you want to call him that, over the last 3-4 years, not expected to have much of a role there. So we know running back is the easiest path to more fantasy points, right? Easiest place to get thrown into like 15 to 20 touches a game if there's injuries ahead of you on the depth chart. So like you're not wrong, man, to be like asking just the general question of who's the RB3 on this team? Should we be interested in that player? Because we've seen it happen before.
Oh yeah, especially if they're not being drafted. It has some value if they end up being really, really good.
Sean Tucker, we were talking about him a little bit last year with Tampa Bay. He's footy. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm trying to invent names that we might be interested in. I don't know if I can see it with really any of these guys. How
Sean
about
Tucker burned me last year. Never again.
I mean
Big, big
Savon
team.
Ahmed with Miami? I know he's like
Mm,
super buried on the depth chart, but if some crazy things happen ahead of him, it just seems like a waste of a pick to be considering some of these guys down here. That's kind of where I'm landing.
Yeah, maybe something with the Colts opens up with Hull and Goodson. I think maybe we get clarity
Mhm.
there.
We were kind of into Hull last year, and I think he got
Hmm.
the work, but just kind of got injured right away. That was what derailed that.
Hmm.
So um, I'm still interested in Eric Gray behind Tyrone Tracy, although I guess we did get confirmation that Tracy was working in practice again today, off to the side, not in team drills or anything like that. But I still think Eric Gray could potentially have some standalone value as the backup to Singletary there.
Ty Johnson in Buffalo could be the backup.
All right, so we got a couple of picks left to make here. Um, I just don't care about what's here. All right, we'll go with Whittington. We have the correlation reason to consider him with Marvin Harrison. And then what's going on at running back? Do I want another player down here? You know what? I was just talking about him. It's kind of my subconscious telling me to do something. We will go with Eric Gray. We did just double up on Giants running back, so that's a little bit non-traditional, but it's a round 18 pick, man. How often is it actually doing anything for us? I'm fine with it.
I've done something like this a couple times. I think with his exact two players actually.
Here we go. Chuck, as always, this has been great. I think I'm not sure what the plan is for the rest of the week with best ball streams. I know we'll be back with some preseason action on Saturday with a show or two over on the regular channel, but I guess just everybody keep an eye on the schedule, the Discord. We will let you know, and we'll be back with another show. Right?
Yeah. Everyone watching, we appreciate you guys. Go have fun finishing up this awesome football game we got going. Eagles Patriots. Good luck, guys.
Thanks, Chuck. You have a good one.